Our chalice today will be lit by Reverend Julie Brock. It's our practice, usually, to invite a member of the congregation up to light the chalice, but because service leaders and musicians will be unmasked at times, our current protocol only allows fully vaccinated people up here on the chancel. So we'll discontinue that ritual practice for now, and we look forward to the time when we can begin it again. Chalice lighting words are by Reverend Scott Taylor. We gather not to acquire wisdom, but to remember it, to peel away the voices that leave us lost, and return again to that wisdom within, which senses and signals when wholeness is near. May that wisdom be found and guide us on our way. And now I can say good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation, Santa Rosa. We're a liberal religious community in Sonoma County, celebrating life, empowering people, caring for one another, and helping to build a better world. I'm actually going to do what I said I was going to do. It's easier. It feels so good to be here with you in the sanctuary after such a long time apart and to say those words. It's been like a year and 3/4 for me. I want to also welcome those of you who are joining us on Zoom or live stream, hoping that's working. We feel you here in spirit. And in case you missed the last service, let me introduce you to our new interim minister, Reverend Julie Brock. She'll be leading the service today and helping us regain our footing as a congregation. And you already did, but please continue to give her a warm welcome. I especially want to welcome any newcomers and encourage you to stop by the welcome table. I think it's in the courtyard now, after the service. You can get a name badge, and if you would like to receive our newsletter, fill out a guest card. You will also find some of the important values of our community on the front and back of your order of service. But the most important thing for you to know is that no matter who you are, what you believe, how you worship, or who you love, you are welcome here. And now would be a good time to remind you to turn off or silence cell phones or other beepers before they embarrass you by going off during the meditation. Now, please rise in body or spirit. Open your hymnals to 298, Wake Now My Senses, and join me in singing.
God's love embraces the whole. It is now my distinct honor and privilege to ask if we have any young ones or young at heart that would like to come down. You? Oh, come on down. Come on down. If we have any young ones that would like to come down and hear a story, I am into the enthusiasm. I am so glad to see all of our young and young at heart here. So we're going to go ahead and sing the principal song that is in our order of service. Rod, just one second.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Era, and this is Time for All Ages. Oh my gosh, there are so many of you. Holy moly. Isn't it so wonderful to have kids about is what calls us to UUCSR, to our community and our congregation here. Does anyone know what it means to be called to something, to have a calling? No takers? Like when you get a phone call, right? Yeah? Ian? What was that, Jake?
Answer the phone call or you don't.
Kind of. What does it mean to have a calling, Oliver?
Movie The Ring.
To be called to something means to have a purpose there, to find meaning, to find joy, to find fulfillment. All of us here at UUCSR are called for some reason. It might be our family is here, our family who are related to by blood, or the family that we found, or our friends. It might be moments that we've had here together. I know a lot of you just had Owl Camp and got to spend many beautiful moments together. It might be lessons we learn. It might be times that we've learned important things or cool things or fun things. It might be the feelings that we have when we're with one another. I know I'm having a lot of feelings right now being here with all of you. And it might be our beliefs that call you. You know, that we believe to be good people and kind people, to be kind in all we do. And what called me to UUCSR to be here was working with all of you, because I felt called to learn with you, to explore and to grow with you. I felt called when I saw all of you growing up and continuing to grow up to be amazing, kind, and loving people, even when you make the silliest faces. So I am wondering, is there anyone who would like to share what calls them to UUCSR? Rory.
Cookies.
It is truly the siren's call. Are there any other reasons you get called to UUCSR? None? Candy? Dungeons and Dragons? What about all of you? Are you guys all friends? Yeah. Friends, possibly. What was that?
Bus.
Games, feelings, moments. Well, thank you all. Even though I know those are silly, fun answers, those games that we play together, those cookies, those moments are what calls us here and helps us grow as a community. So thank you all for being called up to the front. And in just a moment, I'm going to call you back to the RE wing. But before we do, everyone's going to make sure they grab their pillows, and we're going to tell everyone who we are. Everyone ready? We are Unitarian, loving hearts, and a helping hand. Thank you.
Surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Announcements. Wow. I haven't heard that in a while. For newcomers, we're normally a very active congregation and have a sheet of announcements included in the order of service, but for today, you just get me. If anyone would like more information about the congregation and what to expect in the coming weeks, I would refer you to our newsletter that's available online, I believe, or the constant contact email if you're signed up. And so now, for the announcements I do have. Reminder about the current mask mandate. To keep each other safe, everyone in the building must be masked at all times, with the following exception for today, and we will see how that goes. Those of us on the chancel will stay masked until we speak or sing, and then stay socially distanced. If you forgot your mask, don't worry, we can provide one. Just ask at the door. And remember to stay socially distanced as much as possible when waiting to enter the sanctuary. For those of you with AV skills or would just like to get some experience, we desperately need volunteers to help Daniel, and I think Aphrodite's still doing it, with the sound and lights and general setup for the service. Daniel's been doing it mostly by himself for the past couple of weeks, and he needs some help. There's been some confusion online about the minister at UU Santa Rosa email address. That address is now the correct address for Reverend Julie, but everybody has to change the name ID attached to it in their own contact list. Until everyone does that, some of you will still be sending it with Reverend Chris's name attached, even though those emails are going to Reverend Julie and anybody else that's getting the email. Finally, I want us to take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Look around you. Remember who we are as a community. Remember all that we've been through together. I speak for myself, but I assume we're all tired, frustrated, and struggling to find our way out of all the messes we find ourselves in, both here and everywhere else around us. Reverend Julie and I will be exploring what it means for us to all be building a new future for our congregation. We will make mistakes in the process, and some things will be missed, some new ways will be found. But most important to remember, we're all doing the best we can in this moment of uncertainty. Let's support each other as we move forward. In this time of uncertainty and anxiety about the future, the work we do here, we're starting to get back into, the support we give to other organizations working in the larger community have become increasingly important to those who we serve. All that we do here is only possible through your generosity. Let that generosity expand and raise our spirits as we deepen connections to those around us. Each week, we share our donation basket with a community group that needs our support. For the time being, we will be sharing the basket with our own breakfast for our neighbors to ensure that we can continue this important service. In the past, volunteers from our congregation and others worked very hard to provide a nutritional breakfast here every Sunday morning to whoever came, no questions asked. Due to COVID restrictions, that has, for now, changed to providing a brown bag meal. I don't think John Ray is here, in case he wanted to say something about it, but I know he's always looking for help. Please be as generous as you can. I know that they need funds. During the offering, you may light a candle to mark a personal milestone or joy or sorrow if you'd like, here on either side where the candles. But please wait until the ushers have passed your row to get up. Also, a reminder to socially distance while waiting in line to light the candles. Haven't seen people in a long time, but we're trying to keep our distance. So will the ushers and candle lighters please come forward?
Please join me in dedicating these offerings. The words are in your order of service. To the work of creating beloved community within and beyond our walls, we dedicate these offerings and ourselves.
Paul just let me know that I think there are 40-something people joining us on Zoom.
Hello!
Good morning. Can you hear me? I'm Barb Kieser. I'm your lay chaplain for today. The Milestones book is a place where you can share your joys and sorrows and other milestones, thank you, with the congregation. Before services, the Milestones book stands outside the sanctuary door, and after the service, I will be available in that same place if you would like to talk. If you have concerns you would like to share another time with a lay chaplain, you can fill out a pastoral care form. Most of you might have them in your hymnal or in the back of the seats. They look like this. And place it in the box over there on the back table. And copies of this card, as I said, will be found in the pews. We will get back to you as quickly as we can. These are the entries from this week. Former member Fred Dodge and his wife Phyllis are moving to Rhode Island to be with her family, from Jim Wolf. I am in Oakland today celebrating the first birthday of my great-granddaughter, Harlow for me, and Rosa for Santa Rosa. You can't imagine my surprise and joy when I heard that they were going to name her after me, from Linda Harlow. I am floating in a sea of grief and sorrow. I was sitting next to my daughter who was in the hospital bed when she passed away, Bergen Williams, and she had Wilson's disease. She sometimes came with me to services here. My heart is bleeding. Phyllis Fitzgerald. We're thinking of you, Phyllis, and trying to be with you. Donna Watson writes, I ask for healing prayers for my nephew Jesse, who's fighting COVID. He had a tracheotomy, which will allow him to be under less sedation with the ventilator. And Lucia Milburn writes, Lucia and Joe, loving thoughts, please, for Nina, who is again on the lockdown and can't come home for visits. We're so sorry to hear that. These are the milestones for today. May we hold all of these sorrows and joys in our heart. Thank you.
I think you have my prayer there. Sources of radiance and resilience, sources of courage and compassion. Keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this day. May the suffering be soothed. May the weary find rest. May the sick be tended. May the dying and those who love them find peace. May the joyous be shielded. And may all of us know that we are wrapped in a love that surrounds us always, a web that connects us to all that exists. Amen. At this moment, I invite you all into deeper contemplation, deeper exaltation, whatever it is that calls you to be in worship this morning. I invite you to take a few moments of silence to connect to that thing, and then to come out singing.
Sometimes you only know your deepest calling by looking backward. I have a strong memory of playing in the desert of our Tucson, Arizona backyard at the age of 4 or 5, completely engaged in what I was doing, building miniature villages with my toy tractors and dump trucks. I'd use small rocks and sticks to create little houses, all the while imagining the small creatures who might live in them. 60 years later, I work as a part of many different teams, creating houses for larger creatures, grown-ups like us. Between now and then, my interests have taken many different turns, but always connected to creating or building in some form or another. As a young adult, I was sure I would be an artist. I loved the pure creativity and freedom of building something out of an idea or an image, using whatever material I felt like. Sadly, building houses pays much better than the fine arts. But after working in construction for a while, I learned that the loving attention and creative engagement that drew me to art could be experienced in craft as well. They involve the same imagining, planning, and creating processes, and can provide the same feelings of accomplishment. Growing up, I always assumed that building something, whether art or furniture or a bathroom, was a hands-on thing. When my interest in psychology took me on a different path in my early 30s, I became fascinated with the ways our relationships are constructed. Friendships, intimate partnerships, and families are built on structures of trust and expectation, of agreements both spoken and assumed. They provide social and emotional support for most of us that most of us need to be able to function in our lives. Our business relationships, religious communities, social and political groups, towns, regions, states, and even countries have networks of relatedness that nourish us. In training to become a clinical psychologist, I came to understand both the importance of social relationships and how complex and fragile they often are. In this kind of building, relationship building, trust and transparency are critical, kind of like solid concrete foundation under a house. No matter how beautiful the rest of the structure is, it won't stay standing if it can't weather a storm or an earthquake. Though I have not chosen to follow a career path as a clinical therapist, the training I received helped me to see that there is no significant difference between my early desire to imagine and create physical objects and structures and my calling to bring that same imagination and creativity to build meaningful relationships in all parts of my life. I've been a part of 2 men's groups over the past 30 years, and each one has taught me so much more about myself than I ever could have learned on my own. As we made mistakes and struggled to repair them, we created sets of intentions, very much like our UU principles. We revised them from time to time as we grew to understand each other better. But they are the structure, the foundation that gives us a place to go back to when we get into uncharted territory. Over time, we have come to trust each other and the safety of the group. It's become a place where we can expose the most vulnerable parts of ourselves and be supported. When I first experienced this UU community, it was not here at this building, but at the congregational retreat in Gualala. I remember some reluctance. I was not really ready to make a commitment to a group of people I had no connection to. I was just there to accompany my daughter and her friends. I was too busy. I'm sure there were other reasons too. But you won me over in one weekend. The service under the redwoods led by Reverend Chris with my favorite poem, Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. Once I became a part of this congregation and began to see what an amazing group of people you are, I knew that this was a place I could bring my skills and desire to help build the caring and thoughtful community we are and continue to grow into. We've been through multiple traumas over the time I've been a member. Great Recession, fires, politics, COVID, and losing Reverend Chris. We've cared for each other through all that. We need to go easy on each other in this difficult moment, even though most of us are sad or disappointed. Maybe my calling here and now is to share my life with you in my reflections, in the hope it will help to restore the foundation of trust and common purpose that feels a little shaky to me right now. I'm still too busy, but in spite of that excuse, I look forward to bringing my deepest self and building the future of this congregation with all of you.
My old eyes can't see that far. Show me the hopeless that I may bring hope. Show me injustice that I may rebel. Show me the needy that I may provide. Show me, please. Show time is short, but our reach is great, and love reveals our soul. The gifts we share are the lives we live, drawn toward a sacred goal. Show me evil that I may find grace. Show me the weary that I may give rest. Show me that music will rise from the din. Show me, please. Show me that music will rise from the din. Show me,
I'd like to note that drinking water is one of the exceptions to wearing a mask. Folks, it seems that this work of building beloved community, that it is intimate business. This week, I have had theological conversations about the meaning of worship and music. I have had ethical conversations about diversity and inclusion. I've had difficult conversations about how to keep us all safe and still together. In various and different ways, you all have come to me and poured out your grief, your heartbreak, and your hope. And I've only been here a week. And since you all don't know me that well, I thought, and this is something I often do, it would be a good idea to start out by telling you all my call story, my story of my call to ministry, what brought me here today. Because when you hear about somebody's call, it's like them revealing a little piece of their soul. A calling comes from the most intimate parts of who you are, your essential being, and calls you to be who you are in the world. Some of you have told me that you went online and watched every video you ever found of me, and if that's true, you may have heard this story already. But at this point, I feel that it is universally demanded to be told. See, call is a tricky thing. Some of us can't discern our call. Some of us have life circumstances that make it difficult to follow our call. Some of us have too many callings to follow all at once. So you gotta listen. You gotta listen for the little things that tell you you're on the right path. So last week, Eric, who did a phenomenal job this morning, Eric comes up to me and he says, "You're the new minister. I took on the brave task of working with you, even though I don't know you and have never spoken to you before." And I said, "Great, Eric, tell me about your calling." And he says, "Well, I was called through art, but it turned into sort of construction." And I was like, wait a minute, my call story is from being an artist, and then I got my call to ministry working on a construction building project. This is kismet, this is interesting. And so my first day in the office here, before I had even learned where the light switch was, I walk in and the phone is ringing. And so I pick it up and I hear, "Hello, my name is Eric Skagerberg, and I'm here to make sure that I want to make sure that you can get online and that you can access your email and all of that good stuff. And I'm so sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I'm currently on the Gulf Coast." And I was like, "Oh, really? Where on the Gulf Coast?" And he said, "Like an hour east of New Orleans." And I was like, "Yeah, where an hour east of New Orleans?" And he's like, "Well, not that anyone's ever heard of anything an hour east of New Orleans, but I'm in a little town called Waveland, Mississippi." And I said, "This weekend, I am talking about how I got my call to ministry working on a building project in Waveland, Mississippi. So sometimes things are universally demanded. And it's true. I could have had one of those calls that was super easy, simple, and straightforward. I grew up a Unitarian Universalist. Sunday morning was almost always my favorite time. I gave my first homily when I was 10 years old on the meaning of Christmas, and my mother, in my bridging ceremony, announced to everyone that one day I was going to be a UU minister. It could have been that simple, but things rarely are. Because you see, I had all of these distractions. My mother thought I was bound for the pulpit, and I thought I was bound for Broadway. I was distracted by all of the pretty costumes and the nightly applause. And so I moved to the city of Chicago, and I started working as an actress. And there was something that once in a while tapped on my shoulder and said, Julie, you had great ideas about artistic exploration, but mostly you spend your time singing Disney songs. And there was something that tapped on my shoulder and said, Julie, you have an inkling in you that you're supposed to build community, but mostly you end up getting in catfights with people you are going against for roles. And there was something that tapped on my shoulder that said, Julie, you have shows Saturday night and a matinee on Sunday, and you never get to church anymore. But I was distracted. There were costumes and applause, and I thought that I was terribly happy until, as a young 22-year-old actress in Chicago, a young 23-year-old jazz guitarist broke my heart, as 23-year-old jazz guitarists are wont to do. And I thought that it was impossible, that the 2 million people in the city limits of Chicago were enough to put between me and him. So my friend Naomi said, I'm going down to Mississippi to visit my mother. She's doing Katrina rehab work. You could stay at the volunteer center. Why don't you come? And I thought, I could go to the beach, or go to the beach, or I could, read a book on the beach. So I hopped on a Greyhound, and I went down to Mississippi. And on the way, I fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was traveling along the most beautiful crystal waters with the sunset shining and sparkling over them. That was to my left, and to my right were these fantastic beach houses. And I was like, what do they need to rebuild down here? This is amazing. Until we turned off the street where people could afford beachfront property. There were people that had tarps for roofs. There was a lack of running water. Several people didn't have electricity. They had been fighting with the insurance companies. And this is 2 years after the storm. People had been living like this. And that little tap, tap, tap came back on my shoulder and said, Julie, somebody ought to do something about this. I said, yes, they should, but I'm going to the beach. But before I could go to the beach, I had to go to the volunteer center and drop my stuff off. And when I got there, I saw a friend that I had known back in Michigan. His name was Adam. He owned a construction company. And when I went over to say hello, Adam meant business and said right away, not, hi, Julie, it's great to see you. How have you been? He said, Julie, you have a driver's license. I said, well, yes, Adam, I do. It's good to see you. And he said, listen, I moved down here. I moved down here so that I could direct building construction projects so that people could get their houses back after the storm. And here's the thing. I have a woman who is pregnant, who needs to get into her home so that she doesn't have to give birth in a FEMA trailer. And I have only volunteers for labor and only donated materials for construction, this week I have a bunch of 13-year-old Girl Scouts helping me out. And I have a donation of drywall in New Orleans that needs to be picked up. I can't leave the site. I can't send one of them to get it. So you have a driver's license. Can you help? He didn't say, do you want to? He didn't say, do you feel like it? He said, can you? And I thought, oh man, if I say no to this, I am disappointing an old friend, a pregnant woman, and the Girl Scouts. So I went to pick up the drywall material, and I brought it back to the site. And the next day, there was something else to do. And the next day, there was something else. And the next day, something else. I was needed. Turns out that Adam is a phenomenal builder. He's not so great at organizing people, but I was. Adam is a great carpenter, but he's not so good at keeping morale up after sweltering days building in the Mississippi sun. But that's something I love to do. It turned out, people say that grief, it's a salt block in your heart that has to come out through tears, but mine came out through sweat. And I never thought I could be happy in a place that didn't have public transit and a Democratic voting record. But Mississippi spoke to my soul. I had dance parties with bullfrogs. I had the most beautiful collard greens and peaches and fresh caught catfish that people grew or caught themselves that day. Turns out my soul loves mediocre banjo music and deep, good conversation. I was happy in Mississippi. I even found myself going back to church. It may shock you that there is no Unitarian Universalist congregation in Waveland, Mississippi. And when I went, so I found whatever church I could find, and it turns out, I don't think they said a thing theologically that I agreed with, but it didn't even matter because I felt the tremble of the ultimate in the vibrato in their voices. There were so many times that I had political or cultural disagreements with the folks in southern Mississippi. But every night, we went to the cafeteria in the volunteer center, and people from across different political spectrums, people from all kinds of different backgrounds, people of different races and classes and belief systems, all ate dinner together. Because we knew that we were building something. We had a mission. We had a calling, a reason for being there. And I might say that room, it was more diverse than most Unitarian Universalist congregations that I've ever been to. I thought that I was taking a summer off. Well, I'd only planned to go down for a week, but I stayed for 5 months. I thought I was taking some time off to get back to myself, and the entire time I kept thinking, how am I going to keep this going? How am I going to keep this going when I go back to being an actress? And then one day, I showed up to the construction site. So the day before, we had built roof trusses. Do y'all know what those are? Yeah, they're those big pointy things. That's right. They're the big pointy things that go over the house. Well, we didn't have any cranes or equipment for putting these things on the roof. So Adam came up with this brilliant idea that they were big enough that if we stood them up on their side and tilted them, we could use gravity and leverage to get them on top of the house. It was actually brilliant, and there's not really another way to do it without a crane. Here's the problem. That week, we had AmeriCorps volunteers in, and one of the AmeriCorps volunteers, kid you not, was a former lumberjack. He would have had no problems running around nailing anything in anywhere. But AmeriCorps has a policy. AmeriCorps has a policy that if any of their workers are going to be more than 10 feet in the air, they need to be harnessed into something that is 10 feet above their head. Thing is, there wasn't anything 10 feet above the truss to harness anyone into. And the only people on the site that were not AmeriCorps workers were me and Adam. And Adam looked at me and I said, oh no, no. There are so many things that I am good at. Heights are not one of them. Balancing is not one of them. You see, this house in Mississippi, they were building the new houses. They were putting in a 30-foot post and then building the house on top of the 30-foot post. So it was 30 feet, and then the first floor, and then the second floor, and then a 2x4 that Adam was suggesting I stand on to catch a roof. And I said no. And then the woman who was 7 months pregnant, who had stopped by, asked if she could do it because she was so desperate to have this home built. And I thought, oh man! And it must have taken me 3 eternities to get up there, 1 to just climb the ladder, 1 to move from the ladder to the 2x4, 1 to actually stand up, and everything in me was shaking. And Adam was really impatient by this time, so he yells, okay, catch! And all of a sudden, something too big to hold started coming at me. And the only thing that I could do was to throw my hands up in the air. And then I watched as they gently, tenderly, softly guided that truss to where I had put my hands. A few minutes later, I was collapsed on the ground, looking up, watching Adam and Brian finish the rest of the trusses in the time it had taken me to do the one. As I was laying there soaking in the Mississippi mud, with that southern sun beating down on me, I looked up and I saw people literally and actually building the beloved community. And I knew I wasn't going to be an actress. I knew I wasn't going to be an actress because we all need things that call us to something specific, to find our place in the interdependent web, things that have our specific circumstances and skill sets that are set aside to fill a need. Eric's is building. Mine is a little bit too. I wonder what yours is. I wonder what yours is, because you see, the thing is, we've been through a lot of difficulty in this congregation. Every congregation has, maybe specifically this one, and you're all still here. And you don't keep showing up for something unless it means something to you. You don't keep showing up through difficulty without a little bit of a calling. So I wonder, since there's a lot more of you than there are of me, if you would be willing to share your call with me. Like Eric said, it's minister at uusantarosa.org. I want to hear about what it is that makes you thrive in the world and in this community. I want to hear about what it is that you want to build. Are you really excited about stewarding the next generation of children into a grounding of principle? Are you really excited about playing beautiful music that sets our souls on fire? Are you really excited about making sure that we have systems of good accountability in ways that our systems work logistically and administratively? Because, folks, let me tell you, that is a calling. I want to hear both what it is that makes you tick and what you're most excited to see in this community going forward. Because here's the thing, we got to build. This is a building project right now. We've been through so much. So if your calling is around worship, y'all, we need more worship associates. I just went to a meeting yesterday and we need more. If your calling is around music, maybe you just like listening to it. Sally could help with some administration. If your calling is around stewarding the next generation, ERA needs people to show up and teach and actually do the stewarding. We're all busy. We're all busy, and some of us are grieving. So if your calling is making sure that there are processes to hold that grief in the community, we need more lay chaplains. If your calling is making sure that we have good systems of accountability set up, your board is going to need help with bylaws, task forces, and policy and procedure manuals. If you're not even sure what your calling is, just like theologically there's a place for you, just like community-wise there's a place for you, just like there's a place for you in our deep interconnections, there is a place for you in our web of work. And it's needed now. We need to rebuild this place for all of the people that didn't even know they needed it and might be coming in the future as we reopen. We need you. Minister at uusantarosa.org. Say it back to me. So if you want to teach, and if you want to be a worship associate, that's it. And if there's anything else that you feel that you want to do here, but most importantly, if you want to tell someone who you are and show that little part of your soul, minister at uusantarosa.org. I want to know all of you and what calls you here. A big difference between building a house and building a congregation is that when you build a house, there's a blueprint. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen going forward. I don't have perfect knowledge of this place. I don't have perfect knowledge of anything. But I'm going to ask you to do something with me that I have seen work before. When we lose our way, when we don't know what's coming, I'm going to ask us to just throw our hands in the air and get ready to hold something too big to catch. And then watch as together, put your hands up, yes. And then keep those hands up as together we gently and softly guide one another. Amen and blessed be. And if you will rise in body, I'm still getting the hang of it. If you will rise in body and or spirit to sing our next hymn, Building a New Way, it may or may not be projected. It's 1027 in the teal hymnal, so if you have one of those, but also there should be a slip in your order of service that has the lyrics.
A new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are
out to other people. Make sure that your spirit is open. I know that we may not want to touch at this moment of COVID. And know that we can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way together, stronger. I believe in us. Do you believe in us? Y'all, I think that's all we need. Have a good Sunday. Oh, and Roger, speaking of another Kismet thing, Roger's going to play the banjo, but I don't think it's going to be mediocre.